So let me know how you're doing today. Hopefully everyone is feeling great. We're going to be looking at polynomials. What does it mean, a polynomial? A polynomial means, if you break up the word, poly means many, and nomial means terms. So basically it means many terms. So terms are separated either by addition or subtraction. And you can have a polynomial made up of more than one number or more than one number times a variable. So for example, a polynomial could be just the number 3. That is just actually one term. I could have a polynomial that is x plus 3. So that is a polynomial with 2 terms, also called a binomial. But let's take a look at the different types of polynomials listed below. So we have all of these, x to the 4 plus 2x cubed. That is a polynomial. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms here. Going down, we can see that you can have factors multiplying one another. That's also a polynomial. Let's go ahead and look to see what is not a polynomial. So looking at the examples below, these are not polynomials. Now, why are they not polynomials? If you remember what it says up here, it says that polynomials, looking at over here, have to have positive whole numbers as exponents. So the exponent, if there is an exponent in the polynomial, for example, you don't have to have an exponent, but if there is one, it needs to be positive and it also needs to be a whole number. So in other words, no decimals or negative numbers allowed for exponent. So let's take a look at that list again. Looking at it, we can see that 1 over x, this is not a polynomial. Now, you may not realize this, but if we were to rewrite 1 over x using removing that fraction, that is equivalent. Now, if you thought x to the negative 1, then you are right. And x to the negative 1 has a negative exponent. So anytime you have a fraction where the denominator is a variable, that will result in a negative exponent, and so therefore that is not a polynomial. Let's look at the second example below. That's the square root of x. Now, why is that not a polynomial? Well, square root of x is equivalent to x to the 1/2. And if you remember above, it says that a polynomial must have positive whole numbers, and 1/2 is a fraction. So we can have a fraction multiplying your polynomial. That's not a problem. You just can't have a fraction in your exponent. All right, moving down the list, this is also not a polynomial because this exponent is not a whole number. It is a decimal, 1.2. So when you look down, you can see that the exponents are either negative or they are not whole numbers. So those are non-examples. Those are examples of not polynomials. All right, so in this slide, what you want to do is match the correct cards together. So they're either going to be polynomials or they are not polynomials. So you can go ahead and pause this video and see if you can get this correct. Now, if you do get it correct, you're going to have in your title a correct symbol. So let's go ahead and look at these cards. I have 9 times the square root of x plus 2x minus 7. And what is a square root of x, remember, is the same as x to the 1/2. So that is not a polynomial. So I will put it here with this list. Looking at this card, everything looks fine. The 7x cubed looks correct, 2x squared minus 5x. But then we have an x, a variable in our denominator. So that is not a polynomial because that would result in a negative exponent. So I'm going to go ahead and slide the card here. When you're looking at the next card, now remember, it doesn't matter the order in which you look at the cards and match them. This has not only a negative exponent, but it also has a fractional exponent. So this is not a polynomial. Now let's look at another example. This card here also has a variable in the denominator, so that is not a polynomial. That would result in a negative exponent. and looking at these, x to the 5th minus 2x squared. Remember, you can have a fraction multiplying your variable. That's okay, as long as it's not an exponent. So this is a polynomial. And if you look at the rest, all of them are polynomials because they have exponents that are whole numbers and non-negative. So as long as your exponent is a whole number and not negative, that would result to a polynomial. So once you match it correctly, you should see all correct, so you know you did it right. Okay, moving on to the next slide. We want to know the difference between standard and factored form. Now, what is the difference between standard and factored form? Standard form is always going to be listed from the highest degree to the lowest degree. Now, what is the degree? The degree is the exponent of your variable. So if you have two terms, you're going to look at your highest exponent, and that will determine the degree. But also the degrees must be written from highest to lowest form. So for example, if I zoom in a little bit here, you could see all these polynomials are in standard form because I have a degree 2, degree 1, and by the way, a constant is always considered degree 0. And looking at the next one, it starts degree 5, degree 4, and these are just constant. So as long as your highest degree is written first and then it's going in descending order, that would be considered standard form. Now, non-standard form, this is still a polynomial, but since the degree 4 is written before the degree 5, this is not considered standard form. So you would need to rearrange the order in order for it to be written in standard form. So let's go ahead and look at which of the listed polynomials below is written in standard form. So you can pause this video and see if you get it correct, but the correct choice is x to the 6th plus 3x to the 5th plus 2x to the 4th. And why? The last polynomial starts with the highest exponent degree and continues with the lowest in order. Difference between standard versus factored form. So take a look at the factored form here on the left and the not factored form on the right. So if you looked at the factored form on the left, you could see that all the numbers are multiplying each other. So 2x is multiplying the x plus y. Now, if you separate the x plus y is your factor. And here, x plus y is a factor times the other factor, 3x minus 2y. Factors just mean numbers that multiply one another. Now, if you looked at the not in factored form, you can see that they are separated either by addition or, in this case, addition again, but it could be either addition or subtraction. Now, the second one starts off in factored form, but this plus 7 makes it not in factored form. And the same for the bottom one here. It starts off in factored form, but then I have an added term. So you cannot have factored form with added terms. So I think I will end the video here, and you can go ahead and take a look what you think is from the list factored form. Select the one you think it is, and I will reveal the answer to you in a second. So if you chose the last one, then great job. The last one is the only one that has all factors.